Okay, so we have now begun the recording. The Visiting Artist Program, funded by PAFA's graduate program, brings an outstanding roster of local, national, and international artists to PAFA each semester for lectures, critiques, and workshops. The program exposes students to a public range of artistic approaches and fosters discussion about contemporary art and ideas. This afternoon, we are pleased to welcome Rodrigo Valenzuela, joining us from Vienna today. Rodrigo Valenzuela, born in Santiago, Chile, lives in Los Angeles, California, where he is an assistant professor at the University of California, Los Angeles School of Art and Architecture. Valenzuela studied art history and photography at University of Chile in 2004, holds a BA in philosophy at the Evergreen State College, and an MFA at the University of Washington in 2012. Recent residencies include core fellowship at the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston, Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture in Maine, MacDowell Colony in New Hampshire, Bemis Center of Contemporary Arts in Nebraska, Lightwork, Syracuse, Vermont Studio Center in Vermont, Kala Art Institute in California, and the Center of Photography at Woodstock in New York. Recent solo exhibitions include Screen Series at the New Museum in New York in 2019, Lisa Kandolfer Galerie in Vienna in 2018, Work in Its Place, Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art, Eugene, 2018, American Type, Orange County Museum in 2018, Labor Stand Portland Art Museum in 2018, Newland McCall Center in Charlotte, 2017, Paul Ehrlich Museum of Art in Wichita, 2016, Future Ruins, Frye Art Museum, Seattle in 2015. And Rodrigo is the recipient of a 2017 Joan Mitchell Award for Painters, Sculptures, Art Matter Foundation Grant, and Arts Innovator Award for Artist Trust from Seattle, Washington. So everybody, please give a warm welcome to Rodrigo. And Rodrigo, you can share your screen with us now.
Thank you for having me. Do you hear me well?
Yep, I can hear you great. So I'm gonna
great. So thank you for having me. And as I was saying in the pre-meeting meeting, feel free to write questions in the chat. I'm gonna go chronologically in my work, basically since I finished grad school. So it's gonna be a long process, and I'm gonna try to go fast, but because of that, I don't wanna, you have doubts probably by the time that I'm done, it's just gonna feel that was many projects ago. So maybe just write, and I wanna try to address it and move on as you are asking questions. So we wanna, and any of the coordinators would like maybe interrupt me or address the questions. So for the moment, I wanna start, usually in an in-person presentation, I would start with a video, some of my videos, especially one of the videos I did during my time at grad school. But the connection usually is not that good. The audio is out of phase. So I would tell you that all my videos are in my webpage, rodrigovalenzuela.com, and you can see them when you have time. For the moment, I just want to show you a screenshot, and they're gonna be in silent, so muted, and you're gonna be able to, I just wanna talk over the videos, okay? I have the keynote ready, and I wanna, okay. And everybody can see this, correct?
Yep, that looks awesome.
So this video I made in 2012, 2011, during the first, the summer between my first and second year of grad school, and was getting ready for my thesis. So I was making this, what ended up being a 5-minute piece on, I was going every day to Home Depot or to connecting with the temp agency places to invite their laborers to come over my studio and tell me their stories. After months of interviewing and many hours of interview, I basically the final piece is a collage of their stories into something that can resemble my personal journey into the country. I moved here when I was 22. I mean, I left Chile when I was 22, and I went to Canada. I worked in construction. I did cleaning offices, and I did sleep research and medical research. I was doing a lot of random stuff, and then at some point I crossed the border and moved to Boston. I started working construction in Boston, and you know, so I slowly became a part of the like my life, working with materials, and I'm thinking a lot about kind of these issues. So I moved here to be an artist, but you know, I never expect to be working, you know, like basically under the table and working construction for so many years. Eventually moved to Olympia, Washington, which is an hour south of Seattle, and I worked other landscaping jobs and more construction and moving companies, right? And until I got my papers and I started going to I did my second undergrad, and then I started going to grad school. So this piece is very personal, and if you have time to spend time with it later, it's a 5-minute piece, but it tells you a lot about kind of also my sensibility that is very, very part of my practice later on, and I use similar techniques for works even now. Right. So during the school, I was making a lot of these landscapes that they were kind of synthetic landscapes, a mix and amalgamation of many different places. This can be parts of the Atacama Desert, part of Eastern Washington, part of California. It was, it was very part of it. So I was making these kind of little constructions. You know, during that time, I was thinking a lot about this idea of belonging, right? Like being part of a place. A backstory of these things, of these landscapes, is that I was working on, you know, on the video project. And as I was interviewing so many immigrants, I keep looking at and by the time it has been like 6 years without visiting home. So I started thinking a lot about this idea of basically talking to so many people that miss home and they have raised their life to be in USA. I started missing my own home. And then I started going home. I finally had the papers to go. So I visit Chile, but this was something that I didn't like. Something that it was like, oh wait, I don't miss that much this. I had some sort of nostalgia, but I didn't really wanna ever come back. I mean, most of the people wanna come to USA, kind of make money, and eventually buy land in their home and just come back, or like help their family, and eventually move back where they. But actually, feel quite comfortable in USA, and I felt like that I never wanted to come back to Chile. So, how to make this place in my mind that. So I started making this kind of like purposefully nostalgic images to kind of create that on myself and on the viewer, right? At the same time that I was still working construction and moving around and doing a lot of random projects. So I was also thinking about like making this kind of performance for the camera. And all this work I'm showing to you inform my practice later. So this is very early on work, but also was thinking about how to make, you know, what is the minimal gestures to make something that you can call a home, right? So I was just like throwing all this piece of wood and just photographing and rephotographing and just kind of putting the timer and just making these moments, right? It's like a lot of the time when you have nothing, anything can be a home, right? So like I was just like, and then you know, I finished school and I was kind of like, yeah, so you guys have probably figured out what you do next. So I got super lucky and I got into Skowhegan, which is like, you know, I didn't have really consciousness at that time, but it's like knowing that it's so hard to get in. I was like very, very lucky that, you know, I didn't quite have a practice or like, you know, like really didn't know what to do with a studio. So even if they give you a tiny cubicle, it's one of the first time I had like my own space to work and like and to make a mess and other artists around me. You know, I never had that kind of like a kind of studio camaraderie or practice with others around me. So I started using a lot of the landscapes that I have used before, but this time because they really have like the most successful material they have were photocopies. I was ensembling all these landscapes with photocopies, thinking a lot about, and it's one of the first time I started thinking through the materials too. Before I was really thinking about narrative, and because for the longest time I really wanted to be a filmmaker. So I also thought about the storytelling, the mythologizing of the artist or the my life and like how to tell that story. In this case, I started really thinking about materials. I started using these landscapes that don't really exist because they were an amalgamation in many places. And I started printing them as a photocopy in the way I thought that photocopies being a material of bureaucracy, right? It's a material how the material that you have to do work to the material that would allow me or not to be part of the country, right? So like to be part, and so which matched very well with it because when you move to USA or you move to anywhere, like you think about this like kind of abstraction of a place, you know, you move to USA, but you really don't know which USA you want to move. You know, originally I moved to Boston, and then I have lived in Texas and I lived in Seattle and now I live in Los Angeles. It is like those are four different countries. They are not, you know, so like you know. So I start making these landscapes with this place of the imagination completely out of paperwork. Right? But again, I was like, I was really happy making this, and I felt it was a very successful kind of like art project, right? But I was confronted with the idea that like one of the reasons why I didn't like to make art in Chile is because of this attraction and love to pictorialism. Like in Chile, you're a really good artist if you can make reference to painting or sculpture, right? You are not. There is almost if you can make reference to older art, right? If you are the kind of guy that can make a reproduction of like a Jericho or like a Delacroix or the Jean-Luc David, you are very good artist because the obscure the artist, the more canonic is the take of the plasticity of the painting or the sculpture, like the referentiality is so strong that I really didn't want that. I didn't really want to make this kind of reference to painting. So to me, the most logical step was zooming out and show how the image is made, right? One of the biggest mysteries you have when you are an artist without a lot of means, or you know, in this case, I grew up very poor, so I was like, I all the time thought like, but it was also really great because when you rented VHS or later DVDs, I was really into watching the making of. I was like, I just really wanted to know how things are made, right? Because until you don't meet artists, or you don't meet curators, and you don't meet other people that you just don't really know what entails to make art, how art is made, how people get so many shows, how people can put together big shows in like a couple of months, right? So like to me, showing how art is made, it was like very important. So I started making this series, and this actually was my first solo show in Seattle, the Goalkeeper series, and I was really happy going to still, I think, and I still actually like it, how they look and what all the issues that bring up of like construction and manufacturing. And still, like saying, I have certain affinity for materials. In this case, the clamps are very meaningful to me. And you know, 2x4s, they use wood, they like the stage lighting. So I was working a lot with this. So when I was shooting this, at this moment, I was teaching at Cornish School of Art in Seattle, Washington, and at the same time as I was shooting, I was making a video. After Diamond Box, I was able to like get a little bit of traction with the video because I was nominated to the Vimeo Awards and I was nominated to a couple of awards in Seattle. So I got an award to make the next video, the next video. So since I had a budget, and was the first time I had a budget, I hired some construction guys to help me to build the stage. But in between the building the stage, I was playing soccer with them and taking pictures of them while taking soccer. At the same time, I document them by while they were working. And this image actually, I mean, a lot of the work has to do with labor, but also a lot of the times I make work that you don't know you're gonna make, right? And then you are thinking a lot about it, and that become probably the next project, right? It's like something I kind of spend a lot of time thinking about past works, and a lot of the time it's why it didn't work, why it worked, and what how this could be better. Um, and so these guys were helping me to make this the green screen for the movie. And at the same time, when I took a picture of them, I realized that um, the labor, if it's done well, will disappear. There's no marks, there is no presence of them, right? And eventually the green screen also gonna disappear. So I was taking pictures of this like perfect like moment of pre-disappearance of labor and object. So I kept thinking about that, and that idea eventually became my first museum show, right? But didn't happen until next year. And I make this movie. You're not gonna be able to hear the audio, but um, it's called Maria TV, where this telenovela is a very popular telenovela in Chile. So what I did is I hired 15 maids, real maids in Chile to learn the script of this one and practice and rehearse. And so I also hire an acting coach. In between, I get long shots with them telling me their stories and narrating the life. So everything mixed into into this rehearsal, but also and also this kind of active defiance of the ways that mass media have portrayed working class women. So if you see it, you would see a lot of the time that they're doing the voiceover, but they fail. And at some point, they are failing so much, and they start addressing the camera and kind of feeling kind of upset with the idea of being portrayed the same way, or the way that the camera have reduced them to some prototype. So that Mark one piece that is kind of the second part of this kind of, I used to call it the Trilogy of Labor, because I then made another piece in 2015 that the same museum commission. But eventually every work has been about labor issues. So it's not the trilogy anymore, but this is Future Ruins. The work I was telling you about, the idea of labor disappearing. So like the idea of maintenance and like who keep up spaces and what you gain by that, right? So this piece, it was divided in two rooms. One very massive room that, I don't know if somebody has visited Seattle. This is the Friar Museum is a very kind of European style museum, salon style. So all this room is like very beautiful, good floor, like red walls with paintings from floor to ceiling, right? So what I did is I transformed the whole space into this kind of construction site, graffiti, and together with the graffiti were done with graphite and water and some sort of markers. And the photos that you see in the hanging from the scaffolding, they were my series called the Hedonic Reversal, where I was thinking a lot about ruins and thinking about maintenance and thinking about ruins and what is the thing that takes to, there is ruins that you keep, there is ruins that you demolish more and build above, right? What these residues can produce as a knowledge, right? How you learn from the past. So I was thinking a lot about, but the problem with learning from the past in a very new society like USA is where you have ruins like in Detroit or Pittsburgh and on the small towns that they were post-industrial societies where it's just economic collapse. It wasn't like a kind of, they're not used as a big sign of knowledge, right? So So when you go and take pictures of those places, it's very problematic. I mean, you know, how to make works that doesn't fetishize poverty and how to make work that doesn't take advantage of a particular community. So in this case, I was thinking, but there's still something really, really attractive about ruins, right? But what is that thing? Why we are attracted to ruins? And so the hedonic reversal name come from the idea of like finding pleasure in pain. And so what is the minimum common denominator for something to be called a ruin without taking advantage of a particular community, right? How you can evoke the feeling without like you know, taking pictures of somebody's house or somebody's job, right? And this was the second part of the show. We was a 3 channels video piece that the 3 channels piece that I record. At the time I was teaching at Rice University in Houston. And so I had access to this to the stadium. Basically, I asked them if I could just go and shoot after the games, right? And I was really interested in the idea of like who keep up after these spaces that they are done for social interaction, but also for like kind of this like excess of passion, right? They go, they scream, throw stuff, and then they feel that they go away, and then next game, the stadium is completely clean again, and then you can do it again. So in this case, I have one channel that is the cleaning crew during the day, in another the cleaning crew during the night, and in another channel you see in the top right, or in this case in the left, there is one guy from the cleaning crew drawing the strategy that they use to clean the stadium. So you can see some of the chants that like slowly the people cleaning, and one of the guys says, and the voiceover in this video is of different coaches giving you pep talks about like how to play that, and which I still fascinated by the idea of the pep talk, because it's never addressed the game. It never talks about what you're supposed to do in the game. It's usually like how hard you need to work to be a better person, and because you courage, and like, you know, it's just all this kind of like addressing the soul or in some way of the players. And so yeah, there is something interesting about like the resilience that the coach is asking from the players, while this, you know, a lot of these older workers are kind of like working until like 1 or 2 a.m. like picking up the trash of the people that they got entertained, right? So at the time, you know, as I said, I was living in Houston, so on this, you know, interesting project to think about it, because when I started working on the project of the monument was 2014, 15. So during that time, I mean, obviously, it's like anybody that moved there to the south or live there and see these monuments will think this is completely fucked up, and which has become very complicated to talk about it now, because a couple of years later there was a big movement towards it, right? But to me, I still bring it up because it's to me still it's interesting to think about which monuments we want, which monuments we deserve, right? How we can consider like that. There is no doubt. I mean, I assume between a lot of artists and intellectuals, mostly like, you know, that there is no doubt that they're the wrong people, right? But it's like the interesting thing to also to consider is which one are the right people to have monuments, right? What are the qualities that something need to have to stay in the public consciousness, right? And I think that is very complicated question, because for that you need to know that like there's going to be a future for that place, for that in the ideology of that person, right? So to me, what I really love to think about is the monuments that is more popular in the place I grew up, right? These animitas, these roadside altars that are for unknown people, right? It's like for these little shines that are for people that die of a car accident or kill in the streets, right? and sometimes you find them in the middle of nowhere, and it's very, very beautiful to like think about like kind of how impressive a couple of bricks can feel like the monumentality of the feelings that evoke, right on the scale, right? So what I did for the show at David Shelton's gallery in Houston, it was I took a lot of the elements of a monument I've seen on TV, and I took a lot of the structure of the monuments that I think they're valuable from Chile, Mexico, from Latin America. And I was making this kind of portable box, like a modular thing that eventually you could give to people and have a monument that kind of have a lot of qualities of beauty and kind of scale, but but kind of portable, so like people can install them in their corner or like in a public realm where like evoke the language of importance, but for these unknown people, right? So in some of the exhibitions, actually, I took away the monument. Mostly in the exhibitions where I was showing the photos, because as you see, the box has you can fold it, you can mix it around, right? So I started making this series of photos that they were in some way like an IKEA manual for how to make how many articulations you can make, how many different modes you can ensemble this object. But I like to put the photos next to just this wall release, that it was just like a massive scale of this technique, the texture that you will see. And you see the photos in there. And the photos are like this beautiful, for some way, like this moment, because they are also shot in a transparency paper. They are shot through a transparency paper that makes the negative. So I really print and scan the negative, because they were all printed as a negative and they were like placed in the wall and then reshot. So I was able to paint some sort of like
Hey,
you wanna, yeah.
can you just, looking at these images, the materials you're using is kind of hard to pin down. So could you just talk about what these like monuments and walls are made out of?
Yeah, so this wall was CNC routed in extruded foam, that pink or blue foam, right? And then I kind of sanded and make it, and then I stuck it to the wall. I finish it with some good trimming, and then I coat it with I spray it with house paint like many, many times until it become kind of like until all the lines unify. And then I use a lot of a ridiculous amount of caulking and a ridiculous amount of paint to just like give this like one. And the box itself, I also, what I did is I routed a small piece of foam, and then I made a negative with rubber. And then when I have the negative space, I was filling it up with plaster, with hydrostone or hydrocal. So I was able to make many copies of this the same structure. So the piece of the piece in front is made out of plaster, pure plaster. It's quite heavy. Actually, the back, the piece in the back is made out of extruded foam and paint, which is make it very light. So now I don't know how to make it. 1 second. Okay. So yeah, and the photos, I do the same for most of the photographs I take. I shoot film. I usually shoot medium format film, and then I develop most of the time for I guess 80% of the projects. The reason why I shoot black and white is because I can shoot through the day and then develop it myself at night, so I don't have to wait for a lab, because I don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. So I know what I have to wait until next day to see what I did wrong and correct it next day. So I have a pretty good intuition of what is going to look good, but I don't. A lot of the time, you just don't know. You just like kind of experiment a lot and let kind of some sort of creativity lead the process. You know, I know why I'm doing it, right? But I don't know what I'm doing specifically. What is going to be the final piece? There is a question in the chat, I think, but I
Yeah,
can't
so
see.
they asked, do you have the idea in your mind of what you want the photo to look like when you take it, or do you figure it out as you're composing the image in front of you or setting everything up?
That what I said, like I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, right? I tell you, I have the research, right? I know that there is things I don't like. There is things like in this case the all Confederate monuments. I know I like in this case the things that the street animitas, right? But there is so much in between, right? So I have to start thinking about designing some stuff, and then when I design something, I take a picture, and then I see the possibilities of it. But in general, you know, even when I know what I'm doing, right, like 2 pictures or 3 pictures into it, or like 10 pictures into the project, right, there is something that, you know, I like to tell my students, or being, you know, friends, or anybody that like, is this idea of knowing exactly what you're doing, mostly with photography, that is very problematic to me because is what I call to be a tourist in your own studio, right? Like if you know exactly what you want to make, um, you know, the people that go to Paris or poor people that go to like traveling around the world, like they know exactly why they go to places. Right? They want to take a picture of the Eiffel Tower. They want to take a picture of themselves underneath the trunk of the arch. They know what they want to do, right? And a lot of the time after two or 3 days, then you realize that all these photos that you wanted to take, the reason why you went to the place, they're over. And now you have to get lost and try a small restaurant, meet a friend, and just like gonna get lost and find a small street, you know, find some sort of alleyway that you're fascinated by it, and the kind of place where you start fantasizing about like, maybe I should have a house here. The neighborhood is not as dangerous as people say, and I'm gonna enjoy it, right? So that is the thing. You like I shoot one roll of film, and then I kind of know what the images I wanted to take, but usually I push myself to take a second or third roll. So you know, usually there's a sweet spot, right? There is certain images that you know you wanted to take, that you get it done, and usually those are very interesting, but they are very boring. There is nothing surprising about it, and so a lot of the time I'm happy with a couple of those, and then there is like 2 or 3 images in the roll, in the second roll, that you didn't know you're going to take and you're really happy about them. And then there is you know, at some point at the third roll, you probably just fucking it up. You know, you're running out of options and just really like exhausting the possibilities of the template. But that leads me to another thing that is very important to consider for when you want to see it in all the works, where you see that the camera stay in the same place all the time. It's the same vantage point. And that is because I don't want to think about a lot about kind of photographic quality or like this kind of creativity where you put the camera on this left and play with the focus. I'm not interested in any of those things. I'm more concerned with the performance, the gestures, so my body doing something inside the camera, or like making the 2 materials dialogue to each other. And for that, you need that kind of moment where you're not kind of fascinated with what your eyes can do, and just let it be an interesting composition that you can look at it and let your brain make a lot of associations. So I try to remove myself from that, you know, and I don't know how many other photographers here, but I use 100% of the projects are, everything is an f/22, 1 second exposure, the camera in a tripod. I like everything sharp and focused and everything visible. Everything I did in the studio is for a reason. So I like everything to stay focused, and that is the gallery. Actually, this is the place I'm right now here. Like there's a Kladenhofer space in Vienna, and this is the show I have right now is my third show with them, and it's always very interesting to come here because I show work that you know, it did okay in USA, but it's almost 100% of the times like a work that I do well in USA doesn't do well here. And so I bring a lot of work that I know is good, but it didn't do well in USA. I bring it here, and it's like I do really great here. Like there's something about the sensibilities that changes about, you know, maybe the political attitude or the economic attitude they have towards art is really changed. So this is a project I did at the Central Utah Center of Art, QUAC, in Salt Lake City. And I've been working with this idea of labor unions for a long time. And actually, my next project is all about labor unions and mostly young people looking for work and the internship specifically. So I made a series of paintings, flag paintings about disappeared labor unions. And as you see, they look like lights, but I mean, look like fluorescent tubes, but they're really light tables that they have archival images from Cesar Chavez time. And some other ones have all images of labor unions, disappeared labor unions, and other ones have images of movies that are about labor unions that, you know, the Hollywood don't make anymore because nobody has a job in movies, right? So like still in French movies or European movies, you see the movies about a mailman or the movies about a butcher that like fall in love with somebody or just like their son has a problem. But in America, there is no that sensibility with the workers. So it's very hard to make movies about most people that write movies or make movies, they've never been a worker. So they can't empathize, right? So, and together with that, I made this movie that is, I hire 11 guys to talk about, they're real workers. They're discussing about forming a labor union, and at the same time that they're playing soccer. So the movie cuts between they preparing a soccer match and then preparing a labor union. And you know, it's like my version of 12 Angry Men. If you have seen the play, you know, it's like they try to convince each other to vote for the right thing, and they all start kind of not wanting to unionize, but they want to start convincing them, and they make a point about like how much is necessary that, right? And together, after that, then 2017, right after Trump's election, I started making this series of works that were like about barricades. I mean, they're not about barricades. Actually, the work is more concerned with language in some way. I was reading this book of poem by Pablo Neruda called General Song, Canto General. That's a book of poem where he tried to retell the story of Latin America from Latin American perspective. So when I was reading it and I was like thinking about the protests in America, in USA, I was thinking about the flaws on this argument in some way, like making retelling the story of Latin America before the colonizers, but you're retelling it in the colonizers' language, right? So there is a kind of impossibility of like really, they all create a lot of friction in my mind. This idea of like, what is the right language then to tell the story of Latin America if you are not telling it from with the colonizers' language, right? So in my mind, I started thinking a lot about barricades as that kind of language of like, there is a lot of stuff that they're produced by capitalism, by the government, by institutions, that they're there. They're there for you to like, and a lot of the time when you have to protest or like to rebel against some sort of oppressive forces, they're there for grab. But it's kind of funny to think about that. Like you put the chairs of the institution, you know, of PAFA against the doors to like not let them in their own building, right? So like it's really interesting how you can create friction with those materials. So I was also looking about, to me, it's like also there is a lot of beautiful poetic sculptural qualities into this, into like public gestures of civil disobedience, right? So there is a lot of very nice moments that you see. So I started making these photos that they were made out of clay and shot in there. As I was saying, a lot of elements that are used for kind of political resistance, like, you know, cones, sawhorses, chairs, you know, like pallets, tires, all these different elements. And also in the show, there were this series of homemade masks that they're very popular in Latin America. And I took pictures of myself with this mask. I glued them with bicycle tape so they could you could see them with the flash, because I wanted to make them completely in the dark, like it was a night protest or something like that. And I also covered my body again with clay. The reason why I use clay is because in the book of poems, Neruda talk about Latin America coming from the ground up, being a giant out of clay. So I was just took a lot of kind of literally, and also a lot of creative freedoms about it, because it's like such a small passage in the book, but it just I thought was like give me a good excuse for the materials. And the installation I did at the Gallery Claudeman in Los Angeles, I made this kind of bird's eye view perspective of a telecommunications tower falling down, and with the sawhorses and stuff like that. But I like to make these installations where like they also remind you that I'm a photographer. So even if I have a lot of sculptural elements on it, the bird's eye view perspective is a camera-based viewpoint, right? So it's like, and the last exhibition I did there too. So the masks were the wall was covered in clay, the tower was made of clay. This is a show I did in 2018 at the Jordan Schnitzer Museum, where I don't know if you remember the show I did at the Friar Museum in Seattle, where I covered all the walls with the graphite and the scaffolding. The curator have seen that show, and they asked me if I could do something like that. But the way that they phrased it was like the thing that really gave me the ideas, because the curator was take over the museum. And I thought that was like a very good invitation for her to tell me, take over the museum. To me, it felt that I would just grab anything from the museum. So what I did is I asked them to like hold on to the walls from a past exhibition, and I wanted to like get the permanent collection of the museum. I always wanted to make a project where like I kind of kidnapped their permanent, like also another part of the project is like I was thinking about like hopefully having a show that could travel, but that could be released to cheap, right? So I saw that like every museum in USA, like every town has a small museum that have a travel permanent collection of art, right? That all museums have like a really mediocre American art collection, right? So it's like, if I can get a show going with this, then I don't have to chip anything. They already have bad art. So I just can like take advantage of that. Like, I mean, obviously I could phrase it in different ways, but what I did is I made this series of landscaping photo transfers with acrylic, and I grabbed the permanent collection. I grabbed the walls from the past exhibition, and inside this box, I conceal all the paintings that had to do with Sublime or any kind of like this like hierarchical European ideas of philosophical inquiries, right? So I was thinking like, how is that Europeans only can make paintings about Sublime? So it's like I was like, I'm gonna make some kind of okay paintings or no okay images of landscape. But so the idea of the project is like that you cannot enter this box. You only can see the permanent collection through the cracks of my work. There's a question, I think I see some chat, like, oh, you're in mute. Yeah. Oh, you're mute.
Sorry, Karen just wanted to mention that this is fascinating work, and she's excited to watch it again on the recording. So just a comment for now.
Oh, okay. So thank you, Karen. So I finished, so I did that show, and then I'm done. I was that was kind of like one-off project in some way, because I did this work that wasn't like really part of the kind of big discourse of my work, but it was still very interesting to consider. And actually, that body of work this installation led me to my a video project that also is one of the only times I have worked not parallel with a photo show, but I did this this video called Trilogy that was a commission for the kitchen in New York. That was about kind of tertiary is the people in movies that they don't have any speaking parts, right? But they're used usually to like create the sense of reality, right? So a lot of the time Hollywood will hire a bunch of, you know, couple of Mexican and Indian guys, some Asian ladies to be in the back, and then they just never give it a speaking part. Usually there's like person number one, like clerk number two, right? It's the thing that they do to create the sense of reality, but they are never, you know, they're never real enough to have a talk, to have opinions, or to have a conversation, right? So to me, I wanted to, so this can inspire that video piece about like what is the protagonism that we can have, you know, how is that technology or movies have take away the protagonism that you should have, like when mostly, you know, so is that people of course are so present in everyday life, and then still there is no representation on television and movies, right? So I was, then I got this commission from the Orange County Museum to make a piece, and I was thinking a lot about, and this started my ideas of thinking about modernism in some way. I started looking at, because it was Orange County, and one of my favorite photographers, Louis Bolt, was in Orange County for many years. I started looking at his photos, and I was like, why these photos look smart, right? It's like he's like the quintessential like intellectual photographer, but it's just black and white photos in like a wall, right? So like it's not that, they're not brilliant, but they're like, when you see the shows, they look like a smart person make the show. So I was like having hard time understanding or accessing that kind of ideas. And I realized because they look so much like Motherwell or like Franz Kline paintings, right? So they have this connection with a very deeper history of American painting, right? And you already have a problem. Well, why a Franz Kline? It's a big paint, it's a good painting. Why? How making a black splash on the canvas is like good, or like it's like the thing that America decide that is the thing that embody, you know, famous American painter like Rothko, right? Two colors and then you're done, right? So like it's very fascinating to think what this is like a Franz Kline, right? And I read this, you know, while I was doing research, I found this book that's called How New York Stole the Idea of Modern Art. And obviously there's a lot about kind of conspiracy theories of the CIA and the ideas of like a sponsored art by the government, and how, you know, it was the right movement. It was the right moment to like have these artists that have were materially based and not have a lot to say discourse-wise, in a time where everybody had something to say, and a lot of art was used as a propaganda. Mexican muralism, Russian art, you know, like a lot of Cubism kind of it was in charge of the sort of representation at the time, right? So like that was a kind of all those putting Rothko, Klein, and Motherwell, and Pollock into the global stage was a American statement and a political move, and you know. So I start making photos that were could resemble this kind of qualities of the Franz Kline paintings, but also taking a lot of the elements of Louis Bolt's, right? The desert photos, the construction materials. So I was using a lot of these images to kind of make a mix and of these moments. Right. So that again, this is the space I'm right now here. That was the last show. I covered the walls with some ink to give the film grain look, and I put the images on top. And you see, sometimes the images could like kind of fade into the wall, and I wanted to give the same texture. I'm gonna skip one of the videos, and then last project I'm gonna talk. This is project I'm showing also here right now, and I have the show in LA. Last month I was like as a second part of the Modern series when I was thinking a lot about brutalism and the architect of the kind of like oppressive forces and capitalism and bureaucracy. So I was like thinking a lot about this. You know, this city, Brasilia, that was all created by one architect, Oscar Niemeyer. Also about the art of Gonzalo Fonseca, Uruguayan sculptor that could make these big monuments. Like this approach let the Merzba, big pre-Dada, in between movements, like he took a lot of trash from the street and make this big installation in his house. A lot of these pieces got destroyed during the war, but I kind of taken kind of like a styrofoam and trash from the streets. It was very kind of a meaningful gesture to me. You know, I took a lot of compositions, elements. I was very interested in this between war movements. What kind of art happened in terms of oppression, together with like kind of predecessors of the brutalist architecture. So there's Max Ernst's Capricorn, and you will see an image that is very similar later on my work. Again, brutalist architecture and other references that become part of the work. This is a very important quote for me that is that it is kind of how I see the end, or like what's gonna happen. The end of making art. And these are the images I've been making, you know, taking a lot of concrete elements. What I did with this work is basically find trash in the street, like a styrofoam packaging, electronic equipment, and just fill them with concrete, just pour tons of concrete inside, and then use them as a mold. So they could all form this kind of like a little monster or totemic pieces, and just these like very quiet moments of you know, something that feels institutional and alive, and but also weighty, and they're not super big. These boxes are 48 by 48. Yeah, you know, you can see, I don't have the, actually I do have the, I just want to show the installations of the last piece. So you guys can see this image, right? And
Yeah, we can see that.
So that was the, and again, the bird's eye view perspective repeats again. What I did is I transformed the space, and I built this floor in the gallery. So when you walk inside the gallery, you go inside this kind of wooden floor, so you don't know that it's not the real floor, the real gallery floor. And as you walk and you see the images, by the way, the images eventually I show you the digital, not the digital version, but the scan version. The final pieces are done as photogravures, which is a very old technique of photographic reproduction that is through a printmaking process. So they are very beautiful, inky, and messy pieces, and some of them. And also you can, you see, when you walk inside, you see the ceramic pieces I made, but you have to look it down. I thought it was interesting to do something with the body, to look at the art, you know, so like, and also give you a non-sculptural view of the ceramics, like they become images. I have lights in the edges, so you get, they could be in the dark, or like rather dim lights and see them. And a lot of the time they were in front of these other images.
Rodrigo, if you could talk a little bit about, I know that some of your past shows and exhibitions have been in maybe like rural areas, or
Yeah.
Even the ceiling in this space looks like it was meant to host your work. Can you talk about how you find those spaces and the importance of that to you?
You know, I've been lucky, and I think For a long time, because I was doing residency in so many places and I have a studio visit with a lot of people, I would just basically saying yes to a lot of shows that, you know, I thought for a while that I shouldn't have said yes, but a lot of the time it pushed me to like really think in my feet and just like go to, you know, have a show in Nashville and do a piece there, and then move on to, you know, move on to like Dallas and make a piece there. And then for a long time, I was like kind of making work, improvising. Um, so I really just like the, you know, I, it's also the places that are gonna give you a lot of freedom to make random stuff. And also I really enjoy it. I mean, I really like it because also like addressing a lot of issues, like labor unions and stuff like that. Oh, these places people go and there's the only time to have to interact, and like and I use it a lot to do research and a lot of the times. So yeah, doing a show in Nashville, it's just really hard to think about like how the working class in America will look like only from LA and New York. So I think to me, it's like spending time there is it really teaches you about like what the response to people have, what is the feedback, you know, how you engage intellectually and socially with a variety of audiences. So yeah, it's I don't know what to tell you how I do it. I just got super lucky in a lot of the times, and I just got invited to a lot of places that, you know, I think other people would have said no, but a lot of the time I felt like an opportunity and a challenge, and just the weirdest shit you could do too. It's just like just driving around the country making shows one after the other. I mean, now I'm getting a little too old for it, but you know, 5 years ago I had a lot of energy, so I would like, you know, spend most of the time sleeping in Motel Sixes and just like making art and just sleeping, whatever.
I have another question. So, looks like, so how they're wondering if in reference to the photo that's on the screen right now, how this inky photography, how this process is. So is this a negative that we're looking at, that, or how does the photography production work for you? Do you do any post-production editing to get the like it looks like old film, or as if like water's been on it, or is that the background of the actual space?
No, this is, I mean, they look like it is is because the photos are transferred onto a copper plate and then they're printed with yeah, from a copper plate.
So you carve the photograph on, so you print it, you put it on the copper plate and then you carve it out of the plate and then transfer that.
Is the acid carved out basically. They get you place it with a carbon paper which blocks certain parts of light, and then there's 3 or 4 watts of acid depending that goes in it. So the acid produces the like little corrode certain areas of the copper.
Rodrigo, I have another question. Have you ever experimented with printmaking, or do you have any background in printmaking throughout your?
No, I don't have a no at all. I learned this technique and I found the right people to help me with it. And 5 of them were made in Mexico, and 5 of them were made in Tampa, Florida.
Okay. I had a question that I skimmed over earlier. You were talking about the molds for those, for the box that you had constructed in front of this wall with a bunch of molding and things like that. So a quick question, what brand of rubber mold did you use to make that? Just a really technical question.
Yeah, I don't remember the name. I mean, I know that they're the smooth on brand, but I don't remember which kind of rubber.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of open the floor here for any last questions you have for Rodrigo before he begins his critiques with the students. I'll give it a couple more minutes. Let's see here. Okay, so I have another, just another comment here. Really intriguing methodology you have, super cool. And I'll kind of just bounce off that. It was just a pleasure to have you here and speak with us as a,
Oh, thank you.
As a more like commonly known traditional school. It's really interesting that we get this type of work in here and really important to us that you're able to communicate your process with us. So now at this point, I'm getting a lot of thank yous in the chat. So if you
yeah, it's great. Thank you very much for having me. And again, any other comments or some questions, you can find my email in my webpage. But really, all the work is in my webpage, and so you can look at the videos that I didn't show for the sake of time. And my email is there too. I just have a new book that came out last week. I published it in Milan. I'm gonna have some copies in LA soon. So, and the book also is available on my webpage. So it's all the work I show you plus more. It's 8 years of work. So any questions, or if you want actually have more details, the book is online and the videos are online. So just let me know.
Yes, and then the videos that you were not able to show, those are just on your website as well, right?
Yeah, all the installations, a link to buy the book and a link for the videos. The videos are for free online, and so you can see also the installations and the photographs. All the series are there, so in very good resolution. So just take a look and let me know, and just write me a note, whatever your thoughts are or something that you forgot to ask.
Awesome. That's a nice.
Okay, I'm gonna ready for the studio visits. I think in a little bit.
We'll give you a little break here until you get ready for those. Thank you again for everybody who joined us today. And let Rod here. So.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.